Good day, beautiful people, and welcome back once again to my podcast, Life Treasures and Golden Moments. This is Natalie Silva. Today, I'd like to share some stories with you on Mother's Day, which is coming up this weekend, this Sunday, which I think you will enjoy very much. And before I share the stories, I want to share a little bit of the history of Mother's Day. And this I found in the Farmer's Almanac from 1973, I believe it was. But I think you'll find this very interesting. The real history of Mother's Day in the United States might be a surprise to you. 3 women who champion efforts towards better health, welfare, peace, and love contributed to the day we all celebrate on the second Sunday in May each year. The Mother's Day holiday in the United States wasn't born out of a desire to simply treat mothers to a day off or buy gifts. It essentially began as a women's movement to better the lives of other Americans. The creation of a National Mother's Day is primarily attributed to 3 women, Anne Reeves Jarvis, Julia Ward Howe, and Anne's daughter, Anna M. Jarvis. Anne Reeves Jarvis, known as Mother Jarvis, Anne Reeves Jarvis was a young Appalachian homemaker who taught Sunday school lessons. She also was a lifelong activist who, in the mid-1800s, had organized Mother's Day work clubs in West Virginia to combat unsanitary living conditions and teach young mothers how to safely care for their children. During the Civil War, Mother Jarvis had also organized women's brigades, encouraging women to help without regard for which side their men had chosen. After the war, she proposed a Mother's Friendship Day to promote peace between former Union and Confederate families. I hope and pray that someone, sometime, will found a memorial Mother's Day commemorating her for the matchless service she renders to humanity in every field of life, Anne Jarvis once said. She is entitled to it. Next is Julia Ward Howe. Julia Ward Howe was a famous poet and a reformer during the Civil War. She volunteered for the U.S. Sanitary Commission, helping them to provide hygienic environments for hospitals and ensure sanitary conditions during the care of sick and wounded soldiers. In 1861, she authored the famous Civil War anthem, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which was first published in February of 1862. Around 1870, Julia Ward Howe called for Mother's Day for Peace, dedicated to the celebration of peace and the eradication of war, as expressed in what is called her Mother's Day Proclamation from 1870. Howe felt that mothers should gather to prevent the cruelty of war and the waste of life, since mothers of mankind alone bear and know the cost. Howe's version of Mother's Day was held in Boston and other locations for about 30 years, but died a quick death in the years preceding World War I. Nothing happened in this department until 1907, when a Miss Anna M. Jarvis of Philadelphia took up the banner. Anna M. Jarvis. After her mother, Anne Reeves Jarvis, died in 1905, Miss Anna Jarvis from Philadelphia wished to memorialize her life and started campaigning for a national day to honor all mothers. She bombarded public figures and various civic organizations with telegrams, letters, and in-person discussions. She addressed groups large and small at her own expense. She wrote, printed, and distributed booklets extolling her idea. In May of 1907, Anna memorialized her mother's lifelong activism with a memorial service held at the Methodist Church in Grafton, West Virginia, where Anna's mother had taught. The following year, on May 10th, a Mother's Day service was held at the same church to acknowledge all mothers. Thus was born the idea that the second Sunday in May be set aside to honor every mother, whether living or deceased. Her efforts came to the attention of the mayor of Philadelphia, who proclaimed a local Mother's Day. From that local level, she went on to Washington, D.C. The politicians there knew a good thing when they saw it and were quick to lend verbal support. While in West Virginia, was the first state to officially adopt the holiday, others followed suit. Proclamation of the day by the various states led Representative John Thomas Heflin of Alabama and Senator Morris Shepherd of Texas to present a joint resolution to Congress that Mother's Day be observed nationwide. The resolution was passed by both houses. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed a bill designating the second Sunday in May as a legal holiday to be called Mother's Day, dedicated to the best mother in the world, your mother. For the first few years, the day was observed as a legal holiday. But in absolute simplicity and reverence, church services were held in honor of all mothers, living and dead. According to many sources, Anne simply wanted to honor her mother and the work she had done, and claimed that her mother was the originator of the real Mother's Day. She was dismayed to see Mother's Day become more commercialized, with the sending of cards and gifts and used as a way to promote other causes. Sadly, Anna spent the final years of her life trying to abolish the very holiday that she had helped to establish. Mother's Day today endures and evolves, just as Mother's Day was the creation of multiple women. The modern Mother's Day celebrates the varied roles of mothers today. We commemorate the many ways mothers have fought to better the lives of their children, from social welfare to nonviolence. We also honor the way mothers have raised and nurtured their children with love and courage. Mother's Day is not only observed in the United States. There are several other countries throughout the world that do observe Mother's Day. To name a few, France in 1950 established Mother's Day on the fourth Sunday of the month. China observes it on the second Sunday. And in the United Kingdom, as early as the 1600s and the 16th century, it was on the fourth Sunday of Lent. It was called Mothering Sunday, and it's evolved into a tradition in the 20th century. Now, Mexico celebrates Mother's Day on May 10th, whatever day that is. It could be any, during the week or the weekend. And in India, it's the second Sunday in May, and in Japan, the second Sunday. So Mother's Day is celebrated all over the world, and it's a great day to honor the women in our lives that have done so much for us, whether they're our mother by nature or by adoption, or just maybe someone that you know that has been like a mother to you. So this is our tribute to Mother's Day. And now the first story I want to share on Mother's Day is called A Mother's Day Miracle, and it was authored by Karen Simmons. Michael was a bright 4-year-old boy who loved to sing. He had grown up as an only child, but his wish was to have a baby brother or sister. Needless to say, he was overjoyed when Kevin and Karen, Michael's parents, told him he was going to be a big brother. Every night he would sing his favorite preschool song straight into his mummy's tummy, "You are my sunshine." And his mummy assured him that, even though his baby sister was tiny, she could still hear his voice. The 1st of May was slowly approaching, and Karen experienced some complications due to injuries received in a terrible car accident earlier in the year. The severe migraine headaches-related problems caused the doctors to schedule a C-section delivery on Thursday, May 7, 1992. Much thought went into the next few weeks as Kevin and Karen prepared Michael for the arrival of his baby sister, Marley. As the delivery team wheeled Karen to the delivery room, Kevin stopped at the waiting room and said to Michael, "We'll be back with your baby sister in about 30 minutes. No one could have prepared them what was going to happen next. As soon as Marley was delivered, Karen heard Marley making little hiccup sounds, and whether to do the anesthesia or the excitement, she laughed about her little girl having these hiccups. The nurse looked at Kevin and Karen with a worried expression and immediately took Marley away from the delivery room, and the staff alerted the NICU that an emergency baby was on the way. Moments later, Kevin followed out of the room to get more information. As Karen lay on the operating table, she was unable to move because of the epidural and the fear. A few minutes later, Kevin returned, and the doctor followed to explain Marley's condition. She was suffering surfactant, a condition of the lungs where the chemical needed for flexibility hadn't developed. When she began to breathe oxygen, her lungs hardened like paper bags. As she exhaled, the lungs collapsed together and holes were torn in the lining. Air was escaping from Marley's lungs into her chest, and her condition became critical. Many prayer chains from several churches were called to pray for a miracle. Michael was devastated because he couldn't understand why they wouldn't let him see his baby sister. He told his mother, "Mom, I know Marley would feel better if I could just sing my song to her." 2 days had passed without improvement and no setbacks. Kevin went home to shower and gather some personal belongings while Karen waited in the room. A hurried knock came on the hospital door, and the doctor rushed into the room with a worried look. On his face, he said, "Miss Simmons, there has been a serious complication in Marley's condition. One of her lungs has a large hole in it, and the air is escaping into her chest much too fast. Her belly has swollen due to the air, and it could be fatal if it continues to fill her abdomen. We must have your permission to proceed with the emergency surgery." A tube was placed between Marley's ribs that allowed the air to be drained out of her abdomen, but her condition did not improve. The doctors explained that the damage was too great to Marley's lungs, and if she did survive, she would most likely remain on the ventilator. Michael desperately wanted to see his sister so he could sing to her like he had during the pregnancy, but the hospital policy wouldn't allow children under the age of 14 into the NICU. The next day was Mother's Day, and Marley's condition was worsening. Michael asked his dad, "Can I go see Marley now? I want to sing my song to her." In spite of the hospital rules, Kevin took Michael to the door of the NICU, scrubbed him with the disinfectant, and draped him in an adult gown, and proceeded to carry him across the room to stand beside his sister's bed. A nurse stepped in front of Kevin and said, "You can't bring that boy in here. The doctor and hospital rules won't allow it." Kevin was determined that no one was going to stop Michael from seeing his sister. He looked straight in her eyes and said, "My baby girl is on the verge of death. Michael will see his sister." The nurse backed away. Then the doctor started walking toward Kevin to stop him. Kevin was visibly angry, and the doctor quickly turned around and walked out of the room. As the staff looked on with disbelief, Kevin held Michael up to Marley's bed as he sang, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when the skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away." When Michael finished his song, there wasn't a dry eye in the ICU. The nurses were crying and wiping tears from their eyes. The rules that were so important just a few minutes earlier didn't seem to matter anymore. Immediately, Marley lifted her head and turned towards the sound of her brother's voice. That simple song sung to her while in the womb created a spark of life in her. Michael's childlike faith, expressed through his singing, breathed life into his little sister. By early evening, the doctor came bursting through the door of Karen's room saying, "This is the most incredible thing I have ever seen. There's no physical reason why, but Marley has improved 200% within the last hour. For the first time, all of her gas levels are normal." He was ecstatic as he could continue telling her more of Marley's miraculous recovery. "Never in all the years of my working with neonatal situations have I seen a child with such an injury improve in such a short time. This boy of yours has been the key." The doctor went over to Michael, knelt down and said, "Young man, you really made a difference today. I think your sister liked your song." He ruffled Michael's hair as he stood up. "Kevin and Karen, tomorrow morning, the regular neonatal doctor will be in, and he can look over all these results. But as for now, I have ordered that Marley be taken off the ventilator." The next morning, Marley had completely recovered. The doctor's only comment was, "There was something bigger than all of us involved in this one." Today, Marley is a healthy and very active young lady with no residual effects from her lung problem at birth, except one tiny scar on her chest. Her brother had a son from his heart that allowed God's great healing work to enter the room that day. Some call it a brother's son. Others refer to it as a Mother's Day gift. But for all of those involved, they know that a true miracle happened this wonderful Mother's Day in 1992. This story has allowed the kids and I to witness on many occasions. There have been many versions of their story spread around the internet and through email chains around the world. Still, many people don't believe that it is true, but there is a fact that has remained constant through all the tales. God still performs miracles today. Our earnest prayers and the heartfelt prayers of our families, our friends, and many strangers led to that one moment when God used a little boy to shed God's sunshine on Marley so that one person might believe. What an incredible story. How beautiful. Thank you so much to our author, Karen Simmons. The next story that I'd like to share with you today is called The Inheritance. And the author of the story is Camille Moffat. It's a story about a mother and daughter. I sit on an unfinished windowsill in my unfinished house, listening to the screaming of a drill, the ragging scraping of a saw. Sawdust floats from the upper beams and swirls in a ray of sunlight that disappears again into the shadow. My daughters scamper up and down ladders, unafraid and agile as monkeys flitting across a jungle canopy. Beyond the giant skeleton of boards and beams, I am surrounded by the lush thickness of forests still new in a summer green. I smoke a cigarette, feeling guilty about it, and watch my mother as she picks her way deliberately among the planks, ladders, and scaffolding. She has passed her 70th year now, and my eyes follow her closely, protectively. My daughters are as new with womanhood as the trees are with the green, and their steps are sure, fearless. Mama's feet move slowly, heavy with effort, measured with care. I think about the talk she and I had in the car on the way up this mountainside where I soon will live. We don't have a lot of time alone together, Mama and I, with the girls following along in the car behind us and me keeping an eye on them through my rear view window, watching them bob up and down in their seats to the radio. I'm certain it's said loud enough to blast holes in their eardrums. Mama and I had enjoyed the quiet, not simply the quiet of my car, but the quiet between us. She said it was a magnificent house. I smiled and nodded, checking the rear view again. They would be furious if they knew how much I still mothered them in secret. She said it'll be something wonderful you can leave them someday. I'd already thought of that several times and imagined myself leaving little notes for them in a desk drawer and other special places, telling them how much I loved them and how I'd always had loved them. They could find the tiny treasures I'd left with them within the big treasure I would leave to them. Mama said, I wish I had something I could leave to you, Camille. Nothing as fancy as a house, but at least some small part of me you could always have. I nodded but did not respond. We both knew she had nothing, no home of her own, no hidden fortune, no material treasures. She sighed again, and I reached over and closed my hand over hers and held her. The thought emerged slowly in my mind, like the triangular message at the bottom of a magic 8-ball. It came up to me through murky waters until it bobbed up and down a few times and then became still. I said, you do have something you can leave to me. You do have an inheritance from me. She turned her head toward me, and I felt the confusion in her gaze. She said, I don't, Camille. I'm sorry. The vision took on a crisp edge, depth of color and form. I could see it all, I said. You leave it to me, what your mother left to you. and her mother left to her, "You leave to me the treasure box of stones." "Stones?" she blinked. "Yeah, stones. All silver and shiny, smooth and round. Stones that will glow in the moonlight on even the darkest night." Mama smiled and patted my leg and said, "What stones are you talking about, you silly thing?" "They have words on them, Mama, and I can read the words no matter how lost I am, because the stones glow. They say, 'You will be strong because I was strong.' They say you will survive any heartache because I survived all heartaches. They say you will have courage and wisdom because I have courage and wisdom. And you are my daughter." Those are the stones, Mama, and that is my inheritance. She reached for my hand and held it. Her grip was strong, her hand trembled. She whispered, "Yes, yes, the stones are for you." Now I sit on the unfinished windowsill of my unfinished house, watching my daughters explore and watching my mother run her hands along the beam. She says, "Nice and sturdy." It occurs to me that when she dies, I will be the loneliest person in the world. I feel a stinging in my nose and my eyes with tears. I blink them away and continue watching Mama. Her head is up, her gaze intense. My daughters are calling, "Grandma, Grandma, come look at this." Then they stand together at the edge of the house where no walls have yet been built, and they point beyond the scenery to the rising, flowing mountain edges, all dusky and blue. I remember Mama when she was young, when I was young. There were nice mamas in my neighborhood, and mean mamas. There were more than a few scary mamas. Mine, I recall, with fresh pride, had always been the pretty mama. Her dark hair, and knowing her brown eyes, her wicked smile, the way she shamelessly let her hips swing from side to side when she walked. There was not a child who didn't adore her, not a man who didn't notice her, and not a woman who didn't envy her. My mama, from whom anger flared and laughter bubbled with equal force. I worshipped her, hated her, confided in her, and I lied to her. My mama, whose childhood had been ripped from her in a concentration camp. My mama, who had survived 2 marriages, 2 husbands, not man enough for her, and who had reared 5 children, nearly single-handedly. Seeing her now, standing with my daughters, I let the knowledge of her age sink into my heart. I think, what will I do when you die? Who will I talk to? Who will love me like you always have? I'll be alone, Mama, I'll be alone. I see in my mind a treasure box, the lid standing open. Shiny silver stones stacked inside it. I'm her daughter. I'll be strong because she was always strong. I'll survive any heartache because she survived all heartaches. I'll have courage and wisdom because she had courage and taught me to be wise. And no matter how dark it gets, if I am patient and wait for the rising moon, the stones will show me where to point my feet on the most tangled path. I realize I am crying, and suddenly she is standing there in front of me. My girls have wandered off somewhere, and Mama and I are alone. She says nothing, and I lean forward and press my face against her. She holds me and strokes my hair and says, "Mothers never leave their daughters. Don't you know that? They are woven together, heart to heart, soul to soul. Even death cannot break that bond. When I am gone, remember the stones, and I will always be close to you." I hold her fiercely and murmur, "I'll remember, Mama. I'll always remember." Again, a special thanks to our author, Camille Moffat. That was a beautiful story, Camille. And, I understand how you feel. There's nothing like a mother. Mine's been gone about 10 years now, and I sure miss her, and I love her, and always will. I'll always miss her. So I hope all of you out there have a wonderful Mother's Day with your mothers, a significant person that you love, like a mother, and just celebrate each other and love each other and have a beautiful day. Thank you again for listening to my podcast, Life Treasures and Golden Moments. And I'll be back to share some more stories with you soon. And until then, take care and may God bless. This is Natalie Silva.